Wagwan everybody. Today we'll be looking at what would have happened had Mike Toreno been actually killed in the mission Toreno's Last Flight in GTA SA. This time I prepared two scenarios that I think could happen. One of them is pretty simple and straightforward. The other though is much longer and has many stages. But before I show them to you, let's recall this moment in the game so you know what I'll be talking about later in the video. So first, who was Mike Toreno? Mike Toreno was a CIA agent that was running the criminal organization called Local Syndicate. I know some of you are probably like, what the hell, how a government agent can be a boss of a gang? So let me quickly explain. Rockstar here referred to real life events from that time. I'm talking about the Contras operation. All you gotta know is that the CIA wanted to help the rebellion in Central America in overthrowing the communist government. However, the US government soon forbade this operation as the rebels were doing some mad things there, even to the civilians, and like some seriously fucked up stuff. However, that didn't stop the CIA from continuing the operation, this time illegally. But as they couldn't get any money from the national budget as the operation was illegal, they got a fantastic idea to get in partnerships with some drug cartels and like criminals that are dealing drugs basically. Provide them with the product that they were getting a whole lot of from Central America and then take a percentage of the profits from the distribution of these drugs. So basically the CIA just turned into a drug supplier for gangs. So they operated like this. Their agents were offering some gangs, cartels, etc. that they're gonna be their suppliers. But like nobody knew that they were the CIA agents obviously. They were pretending that they are some rich investors or businessmen, whatever. The point is that Mike Toreno was one of them. And that's why he started the Local Syndicate. And that's why in the introduction he's talking about his contact in Panama. Unlucky for him, or maybe lucky for him, CJ was betrayed by someone who they were supplying, so automatically his syndicate has become a target of a one-man army deranged psychopath in Carl. In the San Fierro section, CJ mashed up the Local Syndicate, killing its main faces, so T-Bone and Jizzy, and also destroying their main factory. But CJ also thought he killed Mike Toreno, so the boss of the syndicate. After Woozie gave him a heads up that he's about to take off in a helicopter downtown, CJ, all excited, went there, exploded the helicopter, thinking that he whacked Toreno. And then later it turned out that he's still alive. Mike told CJ that he's a government agent, was sending him on suicide missions, promising Carl that eventually he'll get his brother out of jail. And eventually he did. And then his brother also kind of changed CJ's plans because personally I don't really think that CJ in the latter part of the story was intending to kill Smoke or wanting to go rebuild the gang. I think that his attitude towards even returning to Grove Street in the mission Homecoming says it all. So today I'll tell you what I think would have happened in the story of GTA SA had the mission Toreno's Last Flight been actually what its name says. The main thing that Toreno brought to CJ's life was obviously Sweet getting out of jail. Other than that though, he didn't really influence his life that much. I mean, of course, CJ learned to fly because of him and got that abandoned airstrip which later was used for during the Caligula heist, but I think CJ would learn to fly anyway at some point. It's like many missions in Las Venturas section required this ability, and for the heist, they surely would find another lockup. Like that wouldn't be a problem. That's why today we'll mainly focus on what would CJ do about Sweet without a get out of jail card in Toreno. Right, so like I said earlier, for me there are two mindsets that CJ could have in that situation. So the first one is that CJ wouldn't be that desperate to free his brother in this. Like Sweet even said it himself, he had no power to get someone out of jail legally, like Toreno could. I don't even know what was CJ's big plan before he got the offer from Toreno. In the mission Custom Fast Track, he tells Kendall that he's waiting for the situation to develop, which just straight up tells me that he just had no idea whatsoever what to do about Sweet. So in the first scenario, where CJ is not willing to risk his whole operation and everything he has built just to get his brother out of jail, he would just give up on it. Sweet wouldn't be angry at him, as from one of his phone calls, we know that he has already accepted that he will spend the rest of his life behind bars.
Carl, what's up? It's your brother.
Hey, what's up, man? You okay?
Not really. I'm stuck in a cell between two lunatics. And people keep trying to jump me. This shit ain't cool, partner. You looking after Kendall?
Nah, she looking after me.
Right. That's cool.
I'ma get you out of there, though, man.
No, you ain't. Who do you think you are? I'm here for life. I guess I've grown used to it now.
No, you not, man. I'm working out. Whatever it takes.
That's a negative. I'm through hoping. Have a nice life, brother.
Hold on, man. I'm getting shit worked out for you. Just hang in there. Sweet. Sweet.
Then CJ would just keep on doing what he's been doing so far, but this time without any distractions in fighting smoke or rebuilding the Grove Street families. And he'd be probably better off without Sweet coming back to his life, cause CJ wanted to become someone. He was running businesses, gaining influence, while his brother had completely no ambition. He thought that the ghetto is some sort of a cap that no one who was born there can cross. CJ tried to show him that he's wrong, but in the same time he loved his brother and kind of owed him for leaving town in 1987. So I kinda get why CJ agreed to help him get GSF on its feet again and bring down smoke. That was not what CJ wanted really though. He just wanted to leave this whole ghetto life behind and move on to better things. So without Sweet asking him to go back, he just simply wouldn't. But there is another scenario in which CJ would desperately try to find a way to get Sweet out, even if it was to be ultra risky and would endanger everything he's built. Since he would still not have any get out of jail card, there would be just one option left on the table: to bust him out by force. Now, invading prison and starting the World War VIII there would be very unrealistic, and even though we've seen it in GTA The Lost and Damned already, but it would be pretty straightforward too, so I just wanted to think of something more interesting. So the best way is probably to wait on some kind of transport and then bust him out. We've seen that in GTA many times, like with Aiden O'Malley in GTA 4, or with Stubbs Voters and Curtis Stocker in GTA TLAD. During such transports, the security is the smallest and there's room for planning. But how was CJ to know when Sweet was being transported? And where and why would he be transported? Well, I guess to court, for his hearing for example. And who was the only person that CJ knew and who could know when is any transport or had access to such information? Obviously, Frank Tenpenny, who after all had a big involvement in arresting Sweet. However, CJ couldn't exactly kidnap and interrogate him, because Tenpenny and Pulaski had dirt on CJ, and most likely had other friends who, in case in which someone would hurt them, would quickly make that person pay. In CJ's case, they would just get him locked up. But we remember what happened after the High Noon mission. CJ finds out that Hernandez has spoken to the Internal Affairs about Crash, and then he kills Pulaski. Why? Because he knew that this was the time to finally make his move and free himself from Crash. He knew that the leverage that they had on him is now worthless, as they got their own legal problems and they're not exactly credible in the eyes of the law anymore. That's why CJ could kill Pulaski and not face any consequences from it. So that was the time where CJ could actually kidnap Tenpenny and ask him to find out for him about when would be the best opportunity to get Sweet out. But Tenpenny would keep a low profile and it would be difficult to find him. So CJ would have to figure out a way to either flush him out or find out where he's hiding. And actually I see a brilliant connection here with one of the cut missions from GTA San Andreas, namely All-Terrain Takedown. It was a mission that was replaced with a player having to take over 35% of the gang territory in LS. So yes, this mission was meant to be the penultimate mission of the game, coming after Los Desperados and unlocking End of the Line. And things that are going on in this mission would perfectly fit our story. So in that mission, Sweet mentions that he wants to finally deal with Tenpenny, just like we do. Then CJ mentions that the only person that would know where he stays is Big Smoke. Then Big Bear says that he knows some Russian brother that is apparently working for Big Smoke. Then CJ finds that rude boy and he tells him about the crack fortress. But hold on, in our scenario, Big Bear is still smoking crack at beat-ups. So before we put an altered version of All-Terrain Takedown into our scenario, first a Sweetless version of Beatdown on Beat-Up would have to take place. So basically it goes like this. After the High Noon mission, CJ returns to Los Santos, the Sweetless version of Beatdown on Beat-Up happens. Then the Sweetless version of the cut mission All-Terrain Takedown happens, and then finally, again, the Sweetless version of the End of the Line mission happens. Only that this time CJ would get some people to get in behind him when Tenpenny arrives to make sure that he ain't got no escape route. Then like I said, he would kidnap him, interrogate him, find out about Sweet's transport, and then probably just put him out of his misery. Then he would get Sweet out and live happily ever after. Now obviously it wouldn't be that beautiful. And you know what I think would happen? I think Sweet would be his right old self again. And what I mean by that is that Sweet, even though he would have half the feds in the state probably looking for him, he would like to go back home and run the families again. Cause like, that's what Sweet does. I actually got this idea thanks to a similar thread in the popular Netflix series called Top Boy, which is portraying the life of gangs of London basically. There also is one character named Moldy, who's been busted out of jail by his friends. And he as well was a leader of a gang, or rather like half a gang back then, because they weren't too serious before he got locked up. Anyway, after he regained freedom, instead of, I don't know, like getting some money together and leaving the country to not only escape the police and be able to live quite normally, but also not to be a burden for his friends, he decided to go and run the gang again. Despite Jamie, who took over while he was inside, telling him that he's doing a dickhead thing and that if he keeps on doing that, it's just a matter of time before the feds find him again. And he weren't wrong, because not long after the police had indeed found him, and they weren't very merciful either because they just shot him dead. And the same I think would happen to Sweet. I just can't imagine Sweet getting away from the hood and the life of the streets. San Andreas shows us that he thinks as if Grove Street was the capital of the world or something. He also had this very unambitious mentality that if you were born in the hood, you gotta die in the hood. So I think that Sweet would be just like Moldy from Top Boy here. Despite CJ probably wanting to set him up for life in some Jamaica so he can live peacefully there, Sweet would ignore that and will put himself at huge risk by going back to the hood. And that will obviously lead to him either going back to jail in no time or, like Moldy, getting killed. It don't really matter that much because both of these scenarios share one certain consequence. Sweet would be gone for good, like he ain't coming back no matter what. Even if CJ managed to meet another government agent like Toreno, it wouldn't help. Even if that agent was a freaking president of the world, he ain't getting Sweet out after a stunt like this. The leader of one of the biggest criminal organizations in the city has been taken out of custody by force, after which he gone back to doing the same rascal thing that he got nicked for in the first place. If some agent could free out such a criminal, it would just be like throwing justice into the bin. It would be a national scandal. Look what happened when Tenpenny got cleared of all charges. People gone mad and started rioting. Imagine how people would react if suddenly Sweet would be let out like this. Plus, he would get locked up in some high security prison, so there ain't no busting him out this time. I guess he'd actually be better off dead at this point. But what would CJ do in such a scenario? If his brother got killed or locked up for good? I say he'd either leave the state, just like with Brian, because he just wouldn't be able to cope with such a loss, and this time he wouldn't really have no family that he shouldn't abandon. Cause like Sweet would be gone, Ryder and Smoke are also gone, Kendall's patterned as well, about to marry Caesar probably, his mum is dead, Woozie would get along well without him, the same probably goes for Mad Dog. Like CJ, everything he built during the story of San Andreas, he was partially doing it for Sweet, so he can be proud of him once he gets out, and so he has somewhere to come back. And then, after Sweet would ignore all the hard work CJ put in to liberate him, CJ would be devastated, and perhaps would want to forget about all this, start over but elsewhere. The second option is that he would accept what happened. He would abandon Grove Street again and go back to work with Woozie, Mad Dog, etc. So, to summarize, CJ was indeed very, very lucky to meet Mike Toreno. Or was he really? Because on one hand, obviously Sweet was family, so you always want to be with your family. And Toreno allowed CJ to do that by getting Sweet out. So CJ didn't have to go through all this mess that I described earlier in the video. But on the other hand, the truth is that CJ would be probably better off without Sweet coming back to his life at all. Cause like Carl achieved a lot, managed to get out of the ghetto, got rich, and Sweet wanted to drag him down again by almost ordering him to rebuild some bloody street gang that meant nothing compared to what CJ achieved. Let me know what you think. What do you think about my ideas, and what are your ideas about what would have happened had CJ killed Toreno in the Toreno's Last Flight mission? Meanwhile, I'm saying goodbye. Respect.